What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of Sit Down Saturday. Today we're going to compare the two brawns. One is very much older than the other, so it's going to be interesting to me to see how they shape up because I don't think it's going to be a slaughterhouse. I predict that Fanstoys will probably win, but I don't think it's going to be a massacre. And it's going to help me make a pretty critical point about the Fanstoys Hunk and my issues with it, I think, based on when the two figures came out. But first, we got to do a little bit of house cleaning. Last week, we talked about the Siege show. A lot of people brought up the voice acting. I'll be honest with you, the voice acting didn't bother me that much. The only voice that bothered me was sound waves. A lot of people brought up the voice delivery, like the pauses, especially Prime, like we're going to go to battle before, you know, like he had a little bit of Shatner in him. That I agree with. But yeah, I didn't think it was terrible. I didn't think it was great. There was somebody that did say, like, you're judging it based on what it's not. Like, that's not entirely true. I'm judging it based on what it is. I'm saying that it's not delivering the way they want it to because we don't have the backstory. It's like you start a movie with the dude and the chick having a big passionate kiss, but nobody cares because you don't know what those two had to go through to get together. That was kind of my point. And I think that ship that they come across at the end, which is kind of like a hint at the next season, is probably the Quintessence ship. I only say that because the Quintessence have been dropped as exclusives coming up, and I think they're going to try to ride the wave of it. I can't imagine that it would be the Nemesis. Somebody said that it might be a time jump. Could be. I just don't see it going that way. Moving on to the KFC Junkions. Everybody was saying how the mesh is supposed to be the net that they try to catch Blur in, and cool, I get it. I mean, unfortunately, it doesn't look anything like it, so if I'd had any inkling that that's what it was supposed to be, I would have gigged them on that. But I like the set overall. I just think that was a terrible idea. If they wanted to do like a net to throw over Blur, they should have done like a proper net. Or a plastic one. But definitely not that, whatever that was. That doesn't do anything like it. Somebody in my comments was like, dude, have you even seen the G... Have you even seen the movie? Have you even seen it? Have you seen it? Seen that movie? G1 movie? Have you seen it, bro? Dude, don't bro me if you don't know me. Do you know what I'm saying? Moving on to Fans Hobby Athena. It's terrible. It's terrible. It is the worst thing I've looked at this year. When T2R6 said maybe the Magic Square Seekers, that could be a close runner-up. I'd have to really look back at both, but it's just not good. I thought I was going to have to do a lot of talking about it, but most people like saw it for what it was, and I was like, yeah, it's no good. And it's $60, so you might be getting exactly what you want for $60. My problem is I would have preferred them charge me $100 and giving me something better. I don't want to spend less money for a lesser product. I don't want to spend more money necessarily, but I'd rather, given the two options, spend more money for a greater product. And lastly, we do have a couple Star Wars notes to clean up, one of which being the failed Black Series lines. A lot of people in the comments saying, like, it's because of the new movies. But like, dude, no, it's not. It is, like, the lines that we're talking about, I mean, in particular, the Hyper Real has only done original trilogy stuff. Like, it's just not as simple as many would like it to be or think it is. It's just not. If you know me, then you know that I love most all of Star Wars. The one I'm least crazy about is episode 9, but it didn't prevent me from buying all the stuff, nor a lot of other people, and in fact it sold a lot better than the previous two because of the stuff we've been talking about recently. You can't let your bias adjust the facts. And I think that's it, so let's go ahead and get into it. There is one thing I want to say before we get started, and that is I have to think about the way that we do this, and we always say there's going to be a certain amount of subjectivity that just is going to come into this. You just can't avoid it, right? I try to be as objective as possible regarding it. Some stuff just comes down to preference. That being said, I had to think about how I feel about engineering regarding articulation and what you have to do to pull it off. And that's not so much about the waist swivel with this particular guy as it is about the hips. If I had to untab that waist flap to get the hip movement all the way up, does that count? And I think the way I'm going to approach it is if I have to adjust transformation to pull off articulation, the articulation doesn't get the credit. I just have to find some sort of standard to hold myself and the toys to, and I think that's how I'm going to roll. With that being said, keep in mind that this BadCube Brawny came out years ago. Fanstoys Hunk came out weeks ago. Let's get started. Let's get ready to rumble, and we'll start with accessories.
So we'll start with accessories, and to be honest, they're about equal here. They both have the drill bit for that thing from that episode. They both have a weapon for the robot mode. Fanstoys does come with the extra face, so it technically has just as many accessories as the BadCube, because the BadCube has the fuel can that houses the weapon in vehicle mode, but because it can house those weapons, I want to give BadCube the edge, but since it's 3 and 3, I'll go ahead and tie them out for both. And neither of them really have gimmicks unless you consider the front bumper accessory a gimmick, in which case they both, so we'll just say they're tied either way.
Moving on to build and materials. The materials feel infinitely better on the Fanstoys. The build is also better on the Fanstoys. However, it's not perfect. It's not up to their normal standard, but it still surpasses what BadCube has kind of done here, where a lot of it is a bit more of a flimsier build.
So Fanstoys is definitely going to take the cake there. In regard to hardware, unfortunately, they both kind of don't use a lot of it. In fact, I think the BadCube at least uses soft ratchets in the knees. So if one thing was more stable or using better hardware, you'd have to almost say it was the BadCube. So they had to get a point for that. So we'll move on to Sculpt. And just looking at them both generally from the front, I mean, Fanstoys is definitely cleaner, but the BadCube is actually fairly clean as well. It's just more stout. But this is where the BadCube begins to kind of fall apart, this area here. Proportionately, you know, the arms are a little long on the BadCube and not as much on the Fanstoys. The Fanstoys definitely nails the more heroic proportions, as they normally do. Looking at the heads, the Brawn does have more sculpted detail. It's not G1 cartoon accurate, but it does have more sculpted detail. However, the general shape of it is a bit more off-putting, whereas the Fanstoys one definitely nails the silhouette better. Now, the BadCube Brawny also uses metallic eyes. However, the Fanstoys eyes show up better because they're not as deep set within the helmet. And BadCube paints the face, which is a nice touch, whereas Fanstoys has kind of moved on to the gray face. And that's obviously a subjective thing. Looking at their profiles, the Fanstoys is just better, clearly, because you can actually see the face, whereas the BadCube kind of just gets eaten up by that helmet. Now, also, it's important to note that the color palette is probably closer to the mark with the BadCube in general, but specifically in the darker shade of the helmet. However, the BadCube still is maybe slightly too dark, and the Fanstoy is not quite dark enough. Looking at the chest, their designs are fairly similar, and they both kind of paint the accents in the abdomen. However, the yellow on the Fanstoys is completely painted, so they're definitely going to take the lead there. Looking at them from the side, it's about even. Maybe some differences here and there, but they're negligible. You could say that the BadCube has more sculpted detail, but that would be about it. Looking at the arms, honestly, it's about equal. Fanstoys does some sculpted work in the forearm, so does BadCube. Fanstoys does some sculpted work in the shoulder, so does BadCube. It's when it comes to paint that Fanstoys once again takes the lead. And looking at it from the side, BadCube takes it in sculpt work, Fanstoys in paint work. Looking at the pelvis and upper legs, honestly, once again, the differences are pretty negligible. Fanstoys does have the base paint. That's what's going to continue to kind of push them ahead here, but sculpted detail work, BadCube has more, especially on the thighs. Fanstoys takes the paint. For the side, pretty much the same exact thing. More sculpted detail work on the BadCube, more paint on the Fanstoys. Lower legs, this is where Fanstoys really takes the cake. Sculpted details about the same between the two, but the overall sculpt is just superior of the Fanstoys. And all the engineering components in the feet actually end up making the feet look interesting to me. Obviously, that's subjective, but what are you gonna do? From the side, once again, this is where most of the sculpted detail actually is for the Fanstoys piece, but it looks great and it pulls it off well. And there's the back view. Once again, the back of the legs look more purposeful on the Fanstoys. Both have pretty large backpacks. However, little stuff like the tire does go a long way with me, just in terms of making it look interesting. They're kind of part of the hood that forms the back of the head plate. Super big on the BadCube and ends up making them look a little clumsy. And we even get some sculpted detail in the back of the legs with the Fanstoys as well.
And so what you have at the end is them tying in the torso, arms, hips, and thighs, mainly for the exact same reason. The BadCube sculpts it better and Fanstoys paints it better, or does an equal job in sculpting and paints it better. But line for line, the BadCube will have more sculpting. The head is the only thing that's a bit different because the color palette is really taken into account here. The helmet is a more appropriate color on the BadCube. I like the metallic eyes better, but the face is better sculpted in proportions, or done better on the Fanstoys, etc. So that's why that ties. Fanstoys takes the lead in the lower legs because they're cleaner and sculpted better and painted better, honestly. And then it takes the overall back and front, mainly due to proportions and overall silhouette. The only thing that you could give BadCube a point for and take one away from Fanstoys is the color palette of the green.
Moving into articulation, the BadCube's head is on a hinge swivel, so you can get up, you can get down, and you can rotate the head fairly easily independent of the backplate. The Fanstoys is just on a swivel. The swivel is hard to manipulate, and you can't move it beyond a certain degree without also moving the backplate. The BadCube gets a waist swivel. The BadCube also ends up getting an ab crunch. I had to show the waist swivel on my Fanstoys from the opposite side because the other one unplugs, but you get a limited waist swivel, no ab crunch. BadCube, shoulders on a universal, you get up to 90 degrees, and you would get another soft ratchet that I forgot to mention to swivel around. Fanstoys, universal as well, up to 90 degrees, swivel around. Really tight bicep swivel. Double joint jointed elbow for the full run, single jointed elbow for 90 degrees, maybe a little bit past. Wrist swivel with a slight hinge up down and fingers on a base pin knuckle. Wrist swivel, fingers on a base pin knuckle. Universals for hips almost get you completely straight and out to the side. Universals for hips, not really limited out to the side, but less range than the BadCube. Far more limited out to the front. Thigh swivel, thigh swivel. Double jointed knee gets you past 90 degrees. Single jointed knee gets you slightly past 90 degrees. No ankle tilt up, no ankle tilt down with a rocker and a toe hinge. No ankle tilt up, no ankle tilt down with a slight rocker, no toe hinge. Now, this was kind of what I was talking about in my Fanstoys review of how disappointed I was with the articulation. If you look at this, Fanstoys gets slaughtered. The best they can manage to do is tie the BadCube in any single category regarding articulation. But BadCube takes it at the head, elbow, wrist, torso, hips, and ankles because of the toe hinge. So it's just, that's my problem with this hunk, is that it's just a very limited figure in it for a very modern age when figures of the past surpassed it in engineering in regard to articulation. Now, they're pretty much the same size, but Brawny is slightly taller. According to the scale chart, he should come up to about halfway up Prime's thigh, which is about right here for both. He should come up to about the neck level of a Masterpiece car, which they both kind of do. And in regard to Ironhide or Ratchet, it should come up to about the lower portion of the chest, which Brawny does, as well as Hunk. As for the transformation, it's funny because neither one of these companies are known for their fun transformations, but neither one of these are especially terrible considering the company that we're talking about. So the BadCube has some fiddly parts, especially around the chest at the end, and some of the leg movements are a little fiddly, but for the most part, it's a straightforward kind of approach and doesn't cause a whole lot of headache, just a little bit of frustration here and there in minor pieces. Then you have the Fanstoys, which most of it operates quite smoothly until you get to the final end with the backpack, and people had all sorts of excuses in the comments before of as to why mine was wrong, but I went and looked at some other people do it, and pretty much the same thing, unless they went from truck to robot. But if you're going to robot to truck, you notice how hard it is to get those panels lined up for the truck mode. So I say all that to say this: neither one of them are the most elegant, neither one of them are the most fun, but neither one of them are terrible, and they're pretty much equally well done in regard to what they're doing. Which brings us to the alt mode, and I gotta be honest, I think the BadCube does a far better job of the alt mode. Like, not only does it look more realistic to me, it also looks more like the cartoon somehow. It looks more cohesive, it looks more purposeful, it looks like a real vehicle, where the Fanstoys one kind of looks, I don't even know where to begin. I don't think it's done extremely well. And I'm not a huge vehicle person, so maybe somebody's like, no, it's obviously an 83 Jeep Cherokee or some stuff, and I'm like, yeah, fine, buddy, fair enough, but it doesn't look like Brawn to me. It's kind of where I'm coming from with it. So I gotta give this one to BadCube. All right, do you care which one of these looks better? Which one looks better?
I think probably that one.
And which one feels better?
Definitely that one.
Do you care which one of these is better?
Not really.
Which one looks better?
I think this one.
Okay, and pick them both up and tell me which one feels better.
This one.
Okay. Do you care which one of these is better?
No.
Which one looks better?
This one.
All right, pick them up. Which one feels better?
This one.
Okay. All right, baby. Which one of these looks better?
I think this one.
Yeah?
Yeah.
All right, you want to pick them up?
Yeah.
You want to touch them?
No, I said he's not better. He's better.
I know. Do you want to touch them?
Yes. So I got better.
Yeah. Hold on 1 second. Touch this one. Which one feels better?
This one.
This one?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Which brings us to our final stats. With them both tying in accessories, gimmicks, sculpt, scale, and transformation, BadCube takes the lead in hardware, articulation, alt mode, and price. Fanstoys takes the lead in accuracy, paint, which they always do, build, materials, and presence. For a final score of Fanstoys edging out BadCube 5-4. As predicted, far from a massacre.
And honestly, I can't express how happy I am that I did this video, because it kind of expresses how I feel about Hunk. Yes, I feel that he's better than the BadCube version. Yes, I feel like he's the best available. However, with the BadCube version coming out years and years ago, I feel like Hunk should have been years and years better. And it's not. It's better, but it's not light years beyond. 5'4" is pretty accurate. If I would have guessed, I would have probably said 5'3", but 5'4" is pretty accurate. Like I said, I do agree with the results in the terms of the Fanstoys version being superior. I'm just honestly shocked that it's not more so. As far as myself, I'm feeling much better every day. Thanks for those who have expressed concern. I'm good to go. Just another little versus battle that we had here, the Skullfaces versus that, and we won, it would seem. Moving on to the next versus, we do have another one coming this month, probably in about 2 weeks. It all depends on when I get the review done. And that one should be pretty interesting, especially because I have no dog in the fight. That being said, another week full of reviews. I'll see you guys soon. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Until next time, take care.